This week on the Ocean Cruisers podcast, I'm having a chat with a couple of my mates, Brioni and Iain from the YouTube sailing channel Red Seas. They're both from Scotland in the UK, and they're sailing around on a Leopard 47 catamaran called Indioko. They bought it out of a charter fleet. It needed a bit of work, but they've been fixing it up as they've been going along, upgrading the boat as they're cruising. They bought the boat in the British Virgin Islands and they're now cruising around the Pacific in French Polynesia. If you want to watch some of their videos, check them out on Sailing Red Seas on YouTube. If you want to watch some of our videos, we've actually just got our boat in the water and started heading west, so you can check out those videos on this channel. But for now, enjoy this chat with Brioni and Iain from Sailing Red Seas. Alright, when you first started putting your videos on YouTube, you had another boat in mind that you started doing some work on, I think. And then that fell through.
Yeah.
And then you ended up on this boat. So that's quite weird. So what went on there?
It's literally like the most ridiculous story. Like, this cannot have ever happened to anybody else in the world. It's just absolutely unreal.
The short version is we start to say that we got scammed, which maybe not too accurate. It's close. Right. So we were sat in Scotland and we fell in love with the design of the boat that we'd found, the Leopard 47. And we're like, we're going to get this boat. That's what we need. And we hunted around forever. And eventually we found one online in a Facebook group.
Yeah.
And this guy was like, oh yeah, I'm thinking about selling my boat. Yeah, you can come take a look at it and maybe you can buy it. That's great. We did all the discussions online in Facebook Messenger, most reliable business communication tool I know.
Always.
And this basically transpired that the guy was stuck in...
He was stuck in Dominican Republic, I think, because this was like just as the pandemic was really kicking off. And so the whole world was shutting down. And
that's right.
So yeah, he was like, oh, come out and see the boat, but I won't be there. But I trust you. Just go take a look at it. That'll be fine.
Yeah.
I think that should have been a red flag, shouldn't it?
Should have been. So we basically had sold everything at this point and decided to buy one-way tickets to St. Vincent, which is where the boat was said to be. So we flew out to St. Vincent, which took a bit of a journey. We quarantined and then we got in a taxi and said, cool, take us to where the boat is. And the guy took us there and there was no boat. And we kind of looked at each other and went, we don't have a backup plan. Like, what's this about?
I literally thought we were like those people that you read about in magazines. I was like, I can't believe we fell for this. We sold all of our belongings and flew halfway around the world. And now we've been scammed and we've got to admit it and go home with our tail between our legs. Like,
but where was the boat? What was the boat that he was advertising?
Yeah. The boat, he was advertising a Leopard 47. We literally got back in the taxi and we're like, take us to the top of the nearest hill. And we took us up this little hill and we got out and we genuinely sat staring out over the bay. We actually have a video of it looking out, hanging off a flagpole or something, trying to pick out, that kind of looks like the tiny photo I have on my phone. Maybe it's like, that one.
Is it that one? No, it's got a black stack pack. Is it that one?
And weirdly, we eventually found it. So the boat had been moved from where it was supposed to be around the corner to a different mooring field outside of the harbour or the marina. And so we worked out what had happened and where it had been taken to. And we went down and discussed and ended up moving on board the boat as the guy promised we should.
Yeah, he basically said like, well, I can't be there to show you around, so go take a look at it. And I mean, if you're there, you may as well just stay on the boat. That's fine. And then it turned into like, oh, you can live on it for 2 weeks. That's not a problem. You can take it for a sail. That's no problem.
Test sail it. So we sailed it. We decided, right, we need to
Such a chill dude.
But the only place to survey it, is Ace, yeah, at the time.
You thought.
It's we end up test sailing this thing for 2 weeks down to Union Island, the last island in St. Vincent, and then we waited it out for the quarantine rules in Grenada and Carriacou to change. That was the nearest boatyard we could haul the thing to get it surveyed. And when they changed, we snuck in. We were the first boat, I think, into Grenada's waters without quarantine.
Yeah, so basically we needed to get a survey because we were happy enough with it. We wanted to progress. But yeah, he was like, oh, well, you're going to have to sail it to another country to get the survey. But that's fine. I don't know where the boat papers are, but I'll find them somehow. And yeah, off you go. And so it's just like...
Why was this guy so like
someone else's boat
chilled out? Like, what is this guy's deal? This is so strange.
Well, no, we found out.
We figured that he's a bit of a chancer. He actually, while we were waiting to get into Grenada, we were on the phone to him, kind of going, "Okay, we're ready to go. We just need to find the boat papers." And he's like, "I don't know where they are." I'm like, okay, this is your boat though, right? Yeah, it is. Give me 20 minutes, I'll find out where they are. Turned out they were with some random guy on the island who was suffering with dengue at the time, who happened to have the boat papers in his house. So we went and got those. And we're like, great, we got the boat papers, we're checked out. We're going to sail across to Carriacou. It'll take 2-3 hours. And he goes, oh, actually, while you're there, just turn around in the bay you're in. See, there's another Leopard. It's a 46, slightly newer boat. Yeah, that's mine as well. Any chance you could just take a boat each and take both of them across? Because I need to move them both down to Carriacou anyway. So we were like on the moment going, well, all right, Bri, you take this one, I'll take the other one. We'll swing them down to another island, I guess. And so we did a delivery of his 2 boats for him down to Carriacou and hauled both of them out onto the hard. So managed all that. Again, didn't own either boat, had no insurance for us to be on the boats.
We had never sailed from one country to another, so it was the first time we were doing any of that. Like, it was just absolutely wild.
And I got both boats out on the hard. Crazy, yeah. We got both boats out on the hard. We ended up living on the boat we were hoping to buy for the whole time of the survey side of things.
Yeah,
and the
we
negotiations.
Like started negotiating, and we knew that as soon as the sale went through, we didn't want to be on the hard. So we were like, well, we know we want to paint the bottom, so why don't we sand it all now? So that as soon as the sale goes through, we can just go buy the paint, slap it on, and splash as quickly as possible. So we started doing like some of the prep work like that, and then
the odd dots, just getting started, and like so yeah, we threw a bit of cash at it, like sanding discs and 4200 and things, basically getting things to the standard we would want them to be, because we were going to buy this boat, and that was, how many weeks were you sitting doing that stuff? Like,
we were in the yard for 2 months trying to negotiate, and then all of the negotiations just fell through, and overnight it was, right, get off my boat, I'm not selling it to you. He just didn't want to negotiate whatsoever from the list price that he had first put it up for.
Despite the fact we needed 2 new engines, it needed a new mainsail.
To rip all the floor up in the galley because it was all rotten. Like, there was so much wrong with that boat, and we were prepared to take it on, but yeah, he was just like, I don't know, scared by finances of COVID or whatever else, and wasn't prepared to talk.
So after blackmailing us for the survey that we'd paid for against the deposit that he got out of us at the last minute, we eventually managed to get the deposit back, and then we found ourselves basically homeless again in the Caribbean, going, what are we going to do? And by this point, we'd made friends with people in the yard and got to know some people. So it was actually really good for us, because the word got out that we were being kicked off this boat, and a brand new Sabre 50 just across from us in the boatyard. They came over and they're like, well, we're going to be here for a while, so why don't you just stay in the honeymoon cabin at the back here while you get yourself sorted out? All right.
It was amazing. Yeah, it was
I'll take that.
Yeah, so we were still like living on the hard, but quite a different experience when it's a brand new 50-foot cat.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's like staying in a 5-star hotel or something, that, like one of those big massive aft cabins. That would be wicked. So what happened to that, to those 2 boats? Did you keep track of it, or what? Like, did he sell them? We then started backpacking our way around the place, and we messaged him a few weeks later with a final offer, like last chance, mate, today or never. And he said that he was going to keep the boat that we'd intended to buy, and he was going to sell the other one. He had an interested party on the other one. And then we did see the other one back up in St. Martin like a year later.
Yeah, so I think he did sell the other one, and I don't think he ever managed to sell the one that we were hoping to buy. It was just too, so he gave up on it and did all the fixes slowly himself, I think.
Presumably, yeah. So
that's crazy.
Yeah, that one never managed to sell. Yeah,
he wanted like a price as if it basically was fully functional out of charter, but it was actually destroyed out of charter.
We said, look at these engines. The survey's come back and shown us how rusty they are, and we didn't know that when we talked online. So obviously, we need to take some money off to fix them. And he was just like, it's a sailboat. You don't need engines. We're like, really? You're going to go down that?
Yeah, it's pretty jammy. And we've since heard stories from people who know him, and he is a bit of a chancer in various ways. He's tried to sue a delivery skipper for tens of thousands of dollars for an incident that they had nothing to do with, and he's a questionable character,
Yeah, looking back, I feel like we got off lightly in the end.
We definitely got away with it, yeah. So we then just sort of bounced our way around the Caribbean. So we actually backpacked / crewed on some good friends of ours, sailed us down to Grenada, where we thought we'd seen another couple of boats to look at, and we looked around those whilst living in a shipping container. And then they didn't happen. What? And one of them was kind of promising but fell through. And then after that,
a converted shipping container, or you were just in a shipping container?
I mean, it was
a bed.
It was basic. Let's just say it was basic.
What do you mean by a bed? Like, a bed could be a number of different things. It could be a mattress. It could be the floor.
I was thinking cardboard boxes. It was like
it was basically a mattress. Oh yeah, it was
fine.
Okay. We had access to Wi-Fi from the next door shipping container that had been converted, so we were good. So we were pretty much constantly online for the couple of weeks that we were hunting around in Grenada.
Yeah.
And then when we basically ran dry of boats in the southern Caribbean that's when we decided to hitch a lift on another boat we'd met back in the yard, who were heading from Grenada back to USVI.
Mm-hmm.
But we crewed with them all the way up until we made it to St. Martin, because we realized that we didn't have B1PD visas and we weren't allowed into US territory without the right paperwork. So we jumped off then.
Yeah.
And that's where we then flew around and ended up finding a boat in St. Croix in USVI. So we flew our way to St. Croix and checked that boat out. And then we test sailed that boat up into USVI St. Thomas and then had it surveyed, and kind of it was all looking very promising. And there's a whole story attached to that boat, which ultimately ends up with being the boat we live on now.
Right.
That said, it involved the boat being destroyed by the broker selling it. He drove it into a fuel dock when he was delivering it to us, like handing the keys over. Phoned us up and said, sorry, mate, I can't bring it into the slip you want, but I've put it on the fuel dock. Oh, but I don't have any fenders, but you might need those. Haha. And jumped off into a speedboat and left the country back to the BVI, where we weren't allowed in because of COVID. So
what the heck? That was a
we got our
broker.
boat. It was like cracked down the side. Yeah, well, he called himself a broker.
He called himself a broker.
Well, he broke the boat.
So
he broke something.
Yeah, there you go. Lived up to his name.
That's nuts. Are you prepared to share the name of that business, or is that something you want to keep to yourself?
I would happily do that, but I'm not sure if I'm allowed. I'm looking at Brioni for permission.
Well, we're never going to go to BVI, are we? We're certainly never going to sail there. We did nearly sail in one night, and then I got really scared in case he'd stolen the boat and sold it on, and then we might sail in and then it might get confiscated, and so we didn't go.
We avoided a whole country for fear of confiscation.
That's wild, that.
Yeah.
He just he put it alongside a pontoon with no
awful.
fenders and then just did one. Like, what a bad person.
Actually, and it was on Christmas week, so all the charter boats in the USVI and BVI were queuing up to get fuel, and he was leaving this thing bouncing off the concrete dock.
Yeah.
So
he just said, I've never done this before. I can't bring your boat into a slip. That's too tricky. I'll just leave it on the fuel dock. Like, no, you can't do that.
It's a catamaran. It's got 2 engines. It's easy. It just spins around if you want it to. It's like a little motor boat.
That's it.
Oh, so what was the story with this boat then? So this boat now, you got this was like out of, was it from a charter company, or was it from like a private skipper or something?
It had been chartered in moorings.
Moorings, yeah, cool.
And then after it had sort of run through its course and got too old for them, they sold it onto a private owner who just put it straight back into another charter company.
Yeah.
And then ran it another 5-10 years, whatever. And then finally, when it was on its last legs, that's when we were like, well, let's take it.
So
they're now a reasonable price.
Cat,
so now you can buy one.
That's
Exactly.
it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Pulled it down just enough. So it's the rescue cat that we're loving back to life. And it still scratches us, but we think if we keep loving it, eventually it'll stop hurting and it'll just be okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think back to like that first couple of weeks on the boat, and it's just insane. There were no systems on board, so there was no solar. So for any kind of power, the batteries didn't hold any charge whatsoever. So we had to run the generator if we wanted power. But that first night, the propane system didn't work, so we couldn't cook anything. The fridge was broken, so we couldn't keep food cold. And it was Christmas week. It was like 3 days before Christmas, and we were just like, I really want to celebrate this and be like, yay, we're boat owners, but like, how are we going to stay alive with no food and no lights? And
we left, there's a little light bulb above the table here, and if we had that on, we could have it on for like 3 hours.
Yeah.
And if we had it on any longer than 3 hours, then the masthead light would die in the middle of the night, and we wouldn't be able to leave that on. So we had to choose where to spend the power,
Right.
And we're filming and editing YouTube videos at the same time, so it was a disaster.
And I think only like 2 weeks after we bought the boat, because it took so long to kind of get the negotiations through, our visas ran out, so we had to leave and sail 36 hours to St. Martin. So
with no AIS, no radar.
Oh my goodness, this boat is not ready for
No
that
instruments.
journey, but we've got no choice. We've just got to do it.
Yeah, we did it
pretty
blind
much.
in the Christmas winds, which you might recall. It basically blasting head on 30 knots in big swell, and we just smashed our way all the way to St. Martin. It was torture.
Yeah.
So why was it in that condition? I mean, so the previous owner was chartering it, but like it was. Did he leave it for a long time or something? Like, what was the deal with it?
Well, so the broker we mentioned was also the guy who owned the charter company that was chartering this boat.
This makes sense.
Idiot.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so things had like technically been repaired, but they'd almost made it worse than before they tried to repair stuff.
Absolutely.
So we had to redo a lot of work that they had done to it. But we bought it in December 2020, so I guess it had been out of charter since at least the March. So that's 9 months.
COVID was on,
nothing.
So 2 years. Yeah, it'd been out of charter for a while, or sat around doing nothing for a while.
Yeah.
So yeah, it very much was a shell of a boat, which it's weird because whilst that's painful to live on when you first move on board, we've actually seen it to be a benefit because, like now, right, everything you've put on yourself, what the systems are. How really quick.
Yeah, because if something breaks, I've got so much more knowledge now of all of the systems because we chose exactly what we wanted and we've put it in a space that makes sense for us. And we know how to fix it because we're like, I know where these wires run or whatever.
Yeah. So it's made a big 100%. Difference in that respect.
Yeah.
We're still
and you can modify it to your own choosing as well. Like, if the boat's a bit banged up and you need to replace some stuff, it's like, well, I don't like this in this color. I don't like the location of that. Let's change them up. Like, it gives you opportunities as well to like make the boat more your own.
Colors. That's a nice idea. We were just trying to get batteries and power and all the basic systems at this stage.
Trying to keep her floating.
just trying to stay alive out there. Yeah. So what did you do to it first of all? I mean, I take it you bought some new batteries, so that was probably essential. But like, what did you need to do to get the cruise ready?
So yeah, I mean, like I say, almost everything. So we entire gas system for cooking. We put in lithium batteries. We went down the Battleborn option, partly because of the lack of knowledge at the time for what was available, partly for convenience. They're drop-in replacements. They're simple. They're easy.
Yeah, they're easy.
And to be honest, we've liked them, right? For us, so I don't dismiss them for that.
Yeah, we put on 1400 watts of solar onto our hardtop, and then a year later we were like, we're going more off grid now. Let's just whack a little bit more on. So we've now got 2200 watts of solar on, which is great because we basically rely on that fully. We don't have any wind generator. We don't have any in water system. Our generators doesn't really work. So we're fully reliant on it. But so far it's been enough for what we need.
Yeah,
but you're constantly on the 220 because of your jobs, because of the work that you do on your computers all the time, and you run a bloody science laboratory in one of your holes, or a mechanical laboratory, whatever you want to call it.
A little bit, yeah. We do
3D printers
have
on
too many
boat.
Gadgets. Yeah, we 3D print parts. So we were printing some latches or something for something you're doing on sunshades today.
Yeah.
So yeah, we 3D print lots of parts of the boat. We do definitely have too many gadgets. That's definitely obvious, as you know. I got
depends who you're asking, mate. I don't think you can have too many gadgets.
Oh, okay, good. I'm within friends here. That's safe.
Yeah.
Safe space right here.
This is a safe place. I'm Iain, and I have too many toys. So yeah, we added a lot of that. We had an induction cooking, which we're kind of still working on now with an oven to go with it. We added we converted. The boat didn't have an inverter when we got on board, so we added a 230 or 240 volt inverter. Excuse me. We're in the middle of adding a 110 one as well, so we'll have both voltages on board and both currents.
Yeah, because some of the things that we've picked up, like we've got a secondhand sailrite sewing machine, but the one that we happened to buy was from an American boat, so therefore it was a 110. So rather than sort of holding out to wait for a 221, we were like, well, if we just have both power systems on board, then we can use whatever we get wherever we are in the world.
Yeah, fair.
And then that meant, we added a freezer as well. So we have a full-blown 230 volt AC chest freezer on board. So we have ice cream and ice all the time.
Yeah, that's like one of my favorite upgrades that we did. And it sounds so frivolous. And it was one of the last things we did. And we had like a 12 volt system before, and it just didn't, it was like a really good fridge, but it didn't actually freeze anything. And like since changing out to this, it's just like, it's the best thing ever.
Pretty much. And that's kind of, that dried up most of the savings. At that point we were like, cool, we've now got no money left.
Yeah.
But we've got 3D printers and a giant freezer on the boat.
Yeah. But we knew that we were going to do all of that. So when we first started looking at the boat, we knew we had a hit list of like, this is how much solar we want, this is how much lithium we want, we know we want radar, and so we built all of that into the cost of buying a boat. So if a boat didn't have those things, we knew we had to hold back money to buy those things as soon as we bought the boat. So it was just a a wild 6 months of let's buy everything at once, absolutely terrifying. Let's ship it all in, and then let's just install it as we go cruising, kind of thing.
And that's the thing, we've been living on the hook every day, you know. That's it. Get it all at once and deal with it, you know.
Mate, that's what I've done. I'm like, because I got this and I could have taken it away straight away, but I was like, no, I want to be comfortable, so I want to do everything. So as soon as I'm on the water, I haven't got any worries and I'm not missing something that I want. Like if you've got the money to do it, just go ahead and do it. If you're committed, like you have to be sure that you want the boat and you do want to live on the boat and all that type of stuff.
Well, that's it. And you know, we were being kicked out of the country shortly after getting it because of visa terms and stuff. So we were like, well, we definitely bought the boat now. So we took all of our stuff. Well, we took the stuff we did buy in the US territories, and then we got to St. Martin, which is import duty free, right? So we were able to order everything else in there, which worked out quite well. And then we stuffed the cabins full, and we basically live on anchor like most cruisers, right? So we've always been moving, and we just do projects whatever anchorage we get to. So the cabin, one of our aft cabins is referred to as the cabin of bad ideas. And it's still
so it's everything you bought that you don't need.
It's started out as just the storage for the solar panels when they first arrived, but we couldn't install them, or the batteries, or everything else. The water maker took up most of that space. And then as we installed everything, it was like, why is the cabin just as full as it always was?
Bought more stuff. That should be the cabin. Like whoever comes on board who's new, just be like, okay, come to the shop. Let's see if you want to buy anything. We've got some used stuff down here.
Oh, that's a good idea.
You might sell some stuff. Why not?
Yeah, well, there's all sorts of junk in there that we probably don't need. It's stuff that we've either taken off the boat as you've replaced it with something that we wanted, like modernized. Or it's stuff that, turned up as a good deal and hasn't quite made it into the boat yet installed. So
we're at that really bad stage where if we have money to replace something before it's broken, we're like, look at us splashing the cash. But then we're like, well, we'll save this one that's about to die, and this will be our spare one for if the new one breaks.
Yeah, that's what you do.
So
that's what it is.
Broken stuff, but we can't bring ourselves to throw it away because then there's nothing.
Exactly. There's a big difference between all dead and mostly dead. It's just mostly dead.
Hey, well, when I got this one, I started like looking through all the cupboards and the hatches and all that type of stuff, and like they didn't throw anything out, like starter motors, water pumps, diesel lift pumps, like they've left everything. Yeah, which is great because if anything, because if if a pump breaks, it's not the pump, it's something in the pump, like a tiny piece generally. So I'm like, there's just spares everywhere, so I can take them apart.
That's perfect.
See if I've got the piece I need, and then wicked, just save myself a fortune, hopefully.
Absolutely.
Well, even like little membranes for water pumps and stuff, like a tiny gasket of rubber, and they like to charge
the rubber bits
$60 or more, you know.
Perfect. They're really insane. Cool. Right, so okay, so since you bought the boat, you've done quite a bit of refit stuff to it. What's left? What do you need to do? Well, this could be a long conversation, eh? But like, what do you? What are the big ticket items that you still want to do to the boat?
Man, I mean, I literally have, like everyone, I have that spreadsheet going, which we can chew our way through. But I think so. We have plenty of stuff that would be nice to do to the boat, and we've got stuff that we need to do to the boat. So like, would be nice. Our windows up here in the saloon are all so crazed you just can't see through them. They may as well be glassed over. You have no idea, right? So replacing saloon windows is kind of a common one on this kind of boat. Our bowsprit that we built ourselves, you might know that story. We made a bowsprit out of a sunken boat. Which was great, and it was beautiful for our last passage until it ripped off 4 times, and we had to put it back on underway in the middle of the ocean.
That
was it ripping off?
So it needs well, it's really just through stupidity.
It was through human error due to fatigue after being
basically. So it's a swing, right? So it swings up to fit the spinnaker or the gennaker to. The gennaker is a loose term for what we have. We have a hand-me-down Genoa from a much bigger boat. We call it a Genoa.
Right, okay. It's a heavy spinnaker.
That's it. It's like a high-wind spinnaker. We don't have to take it out in a storm or anything. We're sorted. But so the bowsprit swings up for us to be able to fit spinnaker or whatever we wish to it. And because we fitted it in a bit of a hurry, the bobstays come loose so we can lift this thing up to attach. But it means all the pressure of the weight of a fully furled sail bouncing around in 3 meter swell just rips the rivets out of the crossbar. the crossbeam,
crap.
and just pulls the bowsprit off. So we chewed through all of our rivet stock on passage, and then we're like, well, now we have no rivets left, so now we don't have a downwind sail. That was just the way it worked. So we'll get that welded on, I think, this time.
Fix
that the way it's supposed to be,
I do feel like we're moving into a stage away from the kind of initial refit that was just to get the boat able to cruise, and now it's more kind of putting our personality on. So I'm starting to do like a lot more sewing, so we're getting sunshades and like making cushions for inside and like making things nicer rather than just doing the necessary jobs.
Well, meanwhile, I'm still trying to fix the generator that doesn't work. And the engine that doesn't work.
That too.
Does the generator turn over? Like, can you crank it with a spanner, or is it dead?
So this might be very boring for people, but basically we've narrowed it down to, I think the exciter stator wire has probably broken.
What the hell's that?
So
the exciter stator wire. No clue what that is.
So, I know, I said it'd be boring for some people, right?
Like this is how you would explain it to me. When the generator gets excited.
Okay, I usually ask what level we should go to between 1 and 5, but we'll go for the mid-ground. Basically, the electric bit of the generator. So the engine part works fine, but when it tries to make electricity, the big kind of if you like, the big coil of wire that makes AC power, I think it's been damaged. So the brains of the generator kind of jump in and go, I'll just shut down the engine part because you're not going to make electricity. And so it starts fine, runs fine, and then turns itself off.
All right, so let's just talk about where you're up to now, because you started in the Caribbean and now you are in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. And congrats on that passage, by the way, because that's an epic voyage. That's a lot of days on the water. And
absolutely.
And it's like, everyone's been listening. You've done it on a budget, you know what I mean? You've done it with what you can afford and what you can get by with, and you've done a pretty bloody big ocean passage there, so that's really cool.
Man, it's been eye-opening, I think is the word. Like I was saying to somebody the other day, so we did the passage. Everyone talks about planning for years to do this and baking money into the boat and all the expensive extra systems. We bought our first EPIRB, I think 3 weeks before we left.
3 weeks before.
Right, okay. But you're in the Caribbean. You don't need one. You fall off. You swim
you
to
don't
the
need
next
one
island.
in the Caribbean. You can swim.
Fine.
Yeah, exactly.
Everything pushes you to Mexico or
yeah.
something like that. It's fine.
That's it, So we still don't have a life raft that's in date. Our life raft is 10 years out of date.
Who does?
From last service. Yeah, we got a dinghy. It's fine.
Yeah, exactly, mate. Exactly. I'm like, you got a life raft that you can paddle. Like, why on earth would you need a real life raft?
Mate, we've got a life raft with a 30 horsepower engine. We'd get there faster.
Sounds like a good life raft. Mate, it depends in what part of the world you're in. In Spain, it almost costs as much to service a life raft as it does to buy a new one. So some people just like after the first 3 years. Yeah, well, the government have got a little, situation with that. I think they're propping up that industry. But yeah, like an 8-person life raft. I have one in my old boat, and then when I went to the company, I was like, how much does it cost to service? It's like a few £100 in the UK if stuff needs replacing. They were like, oh yeah, 700. Yeah. Then if stuff needs replacing, like it could go up to 1,000. I was like, what?
Yeah,
it's like 1/4 for a new
crazy,
one. What are you talking about? So I was like, I'm just going to get good at swimming. That's my life saving strategy.
I love the idea that the boat's going down. Get the armbands.
Yeah,
I'm just going to plow my $700 into swimming lessons, and it'll be fine.
yeah, basically. So no, I'm not into that. But, okay, so yeah, go on, carry on. You're talking about getting the boat ready.
Basically, it's really just ambition. Point we kind of went, oh, this would be fun. We could do the passage across the Pacific.
Yeah, we met a lot of people in Trinidad who had done it already and had either like left their boat in the Pacific and flown home to Trinidad, or they'd done a delivery run or whatever. And I don't know, we just met a lot of people who'd either done it or were heading that way. So it started getting the excitement going. And that was like a real transition for me, because when we first bought the boat, I didn't have a lot of experience sailing, and if anybody mentioned crossing an ocean, I was like, what? No, that's just insane. I'll never be at that level, I'll never have the desire to want to do that. That just sounds like a scary thing.
So for context, our longest passage before setting off on 4,200 miles of ocean crossing was 4 days.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's the same for most people, especially if you're in the Caribbean.
Yeah.
I mean, unless you wanted
That's
to
true,
like
yeah.
skip the entire Caribbean from north to south, you're just going to island hop.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well, that's
exactly.
exactly what we were doing. Yeah, we would do the longer runs, but not significantly long runs. And
Yeah.
so we were like, we'll do Grenada to Bonaire, I think was the 4-day stretch.
Yeah.
And by then you've kind of semi-committed to carrying on to Panama, let's be honest. You can turn around and go back up, but screw it, why not carry on?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when we got to Panama, well, eventually to Panama, it was like, right, get the last minute bits and pieces together. We didn't have a lot of budget set aside, so we didn't spend a fortune.
No.
And really, it was food. That was the main thing. We stocked up because Panama's like, it was the first, well, it was the second, other than Colombia. It was the second sort of major city we'd been in 2-3 years.
Yeah.
So we sort of ran to the fresh fruit markets and stuff, and you went crazy buying everything we could need for the next 6 months.
But I just remember, like, so much of our preparation wasn't in prepping the boat, because actually we'd already done that the year before, and so a lot of our preparation was in the mental side of it, and just the decision making and the sort of the practical planning. So I remember so many times on the passage, like a lot of people said, oh, are you going to take on crew, or are you just going to do it the two of you? And we wanted this first experience to just be the two of us, to sort of like prove that we could do it, and to like just really, I don't know, soak up the experience, I guess. And I would love to take on crew for other trips, but I wanted to know that we could do this one. But so many conversations on the passage, we were just like, I'm so pleased with the decisions that we made. Like, I provisioned for like 6 to 8 months in Panama, so we haven't really had to buy any food even now after we've arrived, because we've still got plenty of food from Panama.
Oh man,
and
especially because the prices here are insane.
Yeah, it's
like
terrifying.
Insane. Yeah, it's like a bag of crisps, like a small bag of chips crisps, would be $3.
Oh, I don't think I've seen anything less than like $5.
$5, yeah, I suppose 5. A bottle of Coke,
how do the
like a
people who are
drinking bottle
from
of
there
Coke,
like
is
live?
$7-8.
I have no
Like, do they not
idea.
buy
I
that
cannot work
stuff?
it out. I mean, we've been like picking a lot of fresh fruit when we go for walks and stuff, so there's definitely an abundance of food just growing around the place.
There is a lot of fresh fruit around, but
they do buy this stuff.
They don't seem to grow vegetables here, so all of the vegetables are like either tinned or shipped in from somewhere else, and so then the price just skyrockets.
It's
astronomical.
I can't get my head around it, but somehow they just have an economy that works.
Yeah,
with a decimal place moved one number to the right, I think. Everything's super expensive. So it's really good that we did provision up in Panama.
Yeah,
the way we did.
And then I like batch cooked 20 meals in Panama before we left and threw them all in our freezer. So on the days where we had like horrific swell, or for the first couple of days where we're still finding our sea legs, we were like, oh, we can still eat real food without actually having to sort of like...
Except that our oven died day 4 of the passage. So we did everything on the cooktop, the stovetop. And it's still dead now. So,
prepped anyway.
Yeah, so we just had to heat up in the pan. So it was so bad.
Yeah.
But we did have 3 frozen pizzas that I was really looking forward to, and they're still in the freezer.
You could do them in a pan. It might not taste great, but you could do them in a pan.
I did wonder about it. Yeah.
I think barbecue pizza does.
I managed to make a cake in the bread maker because I sort of suddenly realised we've got one of those. So that was
it's helping itself to death.
Get creative.
I think when it comes to like doing passages, actually planning your food is like so important.
Huge.
Not just like, okay, let's get loads of food and stuff them all in the bilge and get loads of canned stuff, like, but actually having real meals, because when you're on a big passage that's like 20 or 30 days, it's so boring. I don't like them. I don't like it. I like coastal cruising because it's exciting. Like doing these huge downwind sails, they're miserable. It's the same thing like every day. So having good food, that's literally the only form of joy that you get, aside from like whatever good company you've got. But yeah, it's super important.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Because we actually found, there was a friend of ours said, was it for every 100 miles you lose 10 pounds or something? It was some crazy stat. He was working out that you just don't eat enough food because you're underway and stuff. But we were doing, so there was the two of us. So we, with Wayfinder's help, we were doing 8-hour passages. 8-hour shifts, excuse me, 8-hour shifts. Yeah. So 8 hours on, 8 hours off, which meant we got a proper night's sleep every 8 hours. Yeah. Usually the third shift of that cycle, we'd kind of both be up for most of it. Yeah. But it kind of worked. But you're right, 8 hours of looking out at nothing but blackness or flat blue or swell. Like there's no boats around.
Yeah, there's nothing to see.
Nothing to look at. Wait for the dolphins.
some people like it. You know, these people who like want to be out on the ocean and they just want complete silence and serenity. I'm like, no, I want people and like lively stuff. Like, I enjoy sailing, but I enjoy it when it's interesting.
Yeah, well, once you go through the doldrums for a week, where I have to say, but Brioni did a hit and run on a turtle because it's so boring. Then you really
just need some stimulation, start murdering things.
Like these.
Yeah, pretty much.
You think about these boats who are like, oh my goodness, we crossed an ocean, we hit a whale. It's like, oh no, we crossed an ocean, we hit a turtle.
It's so sad. This like a meter long green sea turtle just sat on the surface, right? We could see it a mile off because the doldrums were just flat. And this guy's just this lump floating. We're like, it could be trash, I guess. It's possible. We've seen some bottles and things. And we get closer and closer. And I got up to bow and I just shouted back to Brioni. I'm like, it's a turtle. I want to steer off a little bit.
No, let me correct this. He's up at the front and goes, oh, hey, look, a turtle. So I grab the camera and I come up to film it. And he's like, we're kind of aiming right for it. And I was like, well, I'm not going to film this. So
you should have done.
The camera away, and then I hear a shock, and I'm like, we're not telling anyone this story. We're not being those people. The good news is that we had literally just like taken our spinnaker down and hadn't put out the Genoa yet. So we were going like half a knot at that.
Oh,
so
that's
it did
fine.
Like wake up and look a bit surprised, but it swam off.
It's a bit confusing.
Those turtle shells are pretty tough. Like, I think it would have been fine.
Yeah.
But everybody now knows. So
the boat before anything else.
Yeah, everybody now knows this story. So you should have recorded it. Well, maybe. I mean, it's not a nice thing, but yeah, it could have been funny.
I laughed a lot.
Yeah. So where are you now? So
you're
in French Polynesia right now.
Yeah. So the passage in total ended up taking us quite a long time. It took us 39 and a half days because we ripped various sails and things and lost engines.
We had a lot of challenges which slowed us down.
And it's an El Nino year, so the wind literally reversed. It was coming from the west a couple of times. So we were sailing super far south just to make headway. But we managed to make our way into Hiva Oa, which is one of the islands in the Marquesas. Mm-hmm. We haven't even touched on half of the things that went wrong, but yeah, we stumbled our way in there. And we kind of took our respite there, swam around, enjoyed it for a bit. And then we've gone north to Nuka Hiva, which is the next island north in the Marquesas. So we're still in the kind of the Marquesas being the first lump. It's actually the one that most people come from Mexico arrive here, or they go down to Fati Hiva. So yeah, this is kind of their arrival. Hiva Oa seems to be mostly people coming from Panama arriving that sort of lower end.
It's so funny meeting everybody after they've done their crossing here, because basically everybody who sailed from Mexico this year had a brilliant crossing.
Man. And 1,000 miles less.
Everybody that sailed from Panama just had an awful time. Everyone's like stumbling in, being like, my boat's so broken. Wasn't that awful? It took us twice as long as we thought. And everyone coming from Mexico is like, woo, we did it. Let's go. Let's have a party.
Case in point, like the doldrums took us 5 days to get through. 6 days, mill pond flat, you can see for miles. I just edited the video the other day and it's flat. And then we were chatting to Jamie from Parley Revival the other day. We met up with him on the beach and he was saying they crossed the doldrums and the equator. They had
to motor for like 6 hours or something
like that, next to nothing, and they flew across it like going 7 knots. And I'm just like, guys, we should all leave from Mexico next time. So much easier.
Oh, it's crazy, isn't it? And it's like the thing is, it's like even if you're cruising with somebody, but they're a day behind you, they can have such like a different experience just because they're 24 hours behind.
Yeah.
Well, in fact, case in point, we had a boat, friends of ours on a monohull were about a day behind us. They left ahead of us. They fell behind. And then they had a pan going on because they were having serious troubles and we were sitting bobbing around in no wind. I'm like, well, we can't help. They caught up with us. Like, this isn't fair.
Yeah.
No.
It's on a good gust of wind and it pushed them on.
Yeah, it's strange. Yeah. So what's the plan then? So you're in the French Marquesas now. Have you got like a cruising route sorted for the rest of the year, or are you just going to take it as it comes?
It sounds like you're confusing us for people who have plans.
There's no plans.
Generally speaking, no. Like we used to, the whole of the Caribbean, we used to make the joke that we would plan maybe 1, maybe 2 islands ahead. Which is usually like a month.
Yeah.
Getting here has obviously required us planning a little bit further in advance and applying for visas for a year. So we have a 12-month long stay visa.
It's like a temporary residency that we just heard today that we were granted, so that's awesome.
Yeah.
We don't need to leave in 2 weeks' time. So yeah, we can be in French Polynesia for a whole year, which is amazing. And then it just gives us a lot of flexibility when it comes time to leave. Doesn't mean that we have to stay here for the full year, but we can if that works into the plan. So generally it's just explore stuff and then keep going west. But...
So we've done the Marquesas enough, I think. Now we're kind of discussing maybe like be here for another week. And then the next kind of major stop everyone heads to is the Tuamotus, which is a string of atolls. So a bit kind of Maldivian-esque. So we can go there and get lost. There's less provisioning around, less people around, apparently.
A lot of people say that that's their favorite part of French Polynesia. So we're sort of banking for most of our time here to be in the completely off-grid, like all by ourselves, desert island kind of vibe. Which will be
sounds really antisocial, but you know, also because it's nice.
That's where Colin is now. When we were talking yesterday,
Yes.
That's where they just turned up, and it was just like, this place is paradise. Like, it's literally like deserted tropical islands, like amazing.
And super shallow turquoise blue waters with little coral bobbies everywhere. It looks incredible.
Yeah, it's just beautiful.
Yeah.
So we're excited by that. So we'll go there and do a couple of months through the Tuamotus. However, we have actually something we do have in the diary. We actually do have a plan.
Oh, look at us having a plan.
So then
2 weeks ahead.
We actually, we basically just decided this the other night. So we're going to make our way to Tahiti around September, October. Because we have decided to go for the first time, we're going to the Southampton International Boat Show and Annapolis, which we've never been to either. So
I'll see you at the American one then.
Oh, awesome. Nice! There we go.
Yeah, we're going to be there. Yeah,
so we don't know we're in there yet.
Oh, cool!
Sweet. Oh yeah.
When is it? It's middle of October or something like that,
isn't it? Yeah.
Middle of October.
11.
Yeah.
October the 11th.
11th or 12th. Yeah. Something like that. Cool. I think it's the 11th to the 18th or something. I only know. I think
I'm going for like
so right then
4 or 5. I think I'm going for 5 days, 4 nights.
Okay, perfect. I think that's similar to what we're doing as well.
Yeah, because it's expensive there, and then I'd need to put my boat in a marina, which will probably be I don't know, a couple hundred a night, something like that. Yeah. So, that's cool. I'll see you there.
Yeah, that'd be great. We'll see in person at last. Yeah, we're just going to leave the boat on anchor with a guy watching it for us, and hopefully it doesn't get ripped up by a cyclone or something, knowing our luck.
But where do you think you'll be at that point? So you think you're going to be in Tahiti, and that's where you can leave the boat for a week to go to Annapolis,
Yeah, so that gets us to the nearest airport, basically.
We're basically going to rush through to Tahiti, and then when we come back, we'll sort of double back on ourselves and have more time in the remote off-grid desert islands. Yeah,
I've got all sorts of crazy ideas. Like, I would love to make it. I don't think we'll do this, but I keep looking at the charts and like, you know what? If you do a ridiculous tack route, you can get to Gambier, which is heading back east, southeast. So going from Tahiti, if you want to go to Tahiti, you can battle your way all the way back towards Gambier, which is almost heading towards Easter Island. Not Easter Island.
Yes.
Yeah, Easter Island. You're kind of heading that way, but I'm a glutton for punishment, so you know.
No, I don't like the idea to like pick the easy route, man. Just go where the wind is pushing you. That's the best way to do it.
Then we'll be in Australia already.
Awesome.
Nah, you got to do the fun stuff. So we'll see. We'll batter our way back into remoteness and enjoy that.
Yeah.
Basically use up our visa time, and then we need to work out the rest after.
Yeah, no idea what we'll do after that.
Problem for future us.
Yeah, no clue.
Oh, but I'm excited to meet you. So that's going to be actually quite cool.
I know, at last, man.
America of all places. Yeah. Well, it's just strange that you weren't popping around here. When I saw a post you put on, you were like, "Oh, you're in the UK." I was like, "Oh, bugger, that would have been great if they would have like been in Europe or something. You could have come cruising on this boat."
Yeah,
next year.
Hey.
Yeah.
There you go. I was going to say we've been invited to Southampton to do the show there. And then we're doing kind of both ends of the country. So we're going to try and see family for the first time in 3 years.
When is that? Like, what month is that?
Up in Scotland. That was just before
September.
Yeah, September 25th or 4th or something.
Yeah,
you should get a cheap flight to Spain. Get a cheap flight to Spain or Ibiza, and just come and chill here, even just for a few days. That'd be sweet.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
Oh, that'd be great. Oh, we'll look into that.
Yeah,
that'd be cool.
September, the flights will be cheap because it's out of season.
Yeah, right. We're not used to that over here.
Oh yeah.
I was going to say,
us to decide that.
Yeah. Flying anywhere from that part of the world is just crazy. Yeah. So, that's all right. So if I don't see you in September on my boat, I'll see you in October in Annapolis.
There we go.
Ah, sweet. It's a small world, man.
Awesome.
I'm telling you. That'd be great as well. At last. It's been this long.
Yeah.
I know, it's been too long. All right, let's end it there because now we're going to talk personal plans, so we don't need all these people listening to this. Cool. Right, listen, thanks for coming on, and I've learned a few things I didn't know about you. Mostly new forms of chaos, but it's entertaining.
Oh yeah,
we hide it well though, don't we?
What was the phrase you used the other day? We're smiling and laughing, so you can't tell we're crying.
Yeah, see underneath it. Sweet. All right, cheers, guys.
Ridiculous. Cheers, man.
All right, thank you.